Uh, Special session mayor and city council meeting, 10 a.m. Wednesday, June 12th, 2024, City Hall Complex, council chambers. Call this meeting to order, and please rise for a pledge of allegiance. Mr. Bermudez, do us the honor.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ms. Robinson, do we have any call to the public? Thank you. And just for everybody knowledge, our legal, Mr. John Paradini, is on the phone. Okay, item number 4, communications, presentation of audit fiscal year 2023. Go ahead.
Lupita, it's all yours. Are you ready?
Yes, ma'am. Can someone make me the presenter, please? Jean?
We're working on it.
Oh, okay, thank you.
The blue's just her microphone, right?
Let's get that for you.
So that should have done it.
Does that work, Lupita?
No, it did say that I'm now a co-host, but when I hit share, it doesn't allow me to share. Does everyone have a copy of the presentation? If that's the case, I can just do it.
The mayor and the council all have copies. We're just trying to get it on our screen so that the whole room can see it also.
Okay, we can do it that way, and then I can just have you advance it.
Oh, here comes Miguel.
Hang on a second.
Miguel's here. He'll save the day.
Okay, okay. What we need.
Did you request to be a presenter?
When I signed in, no, do you want me to sign out and then sign back in? I did I'm hitting present now, but it doesn't allow me to share. And then when I signed in, I just signed in my name, and then it said, are you presenting? And I didn't push that. Did you want me to sign out?
Yeah, go ahead and do that, please.
Okay, give me a second, 1 moment.
Share the full screen of the just the entire screen on the right.
You see it now?
Yes, thank you. May I start, Honorable Mayor?
Go ahead.
Thank you. Good morning, Honorable Mayor and members of City Council for the City of Dallas. Today we'll be presenting the results of the audit for the City of Nogales, Arizona for the fiscal year ended June 30, 2023. My name is Lupita Martinez and I am a principal with Clifton Larson Allen out of Phoenix, Arizona. We can go to slide 2.
Go ahead, Lupita.
If you just hit the number 2 on the side, it'll come up.
It's already there.
You should the background window. Yeah, that's why I added that.
Okay. Slide 2. So the reports that we issued that you should all have is the governance communication. That is our letter to you as members of council. The annual financial report, which is the financial statement. The single audit report. the highway user revenue report, and the annual expenditure limitation report. Next slide. So we're going to go through each of the reports individually and go over the results. So for the governance report, we do have to identify the significant estimates that were made in the financial statements. And those are depreciation, the value of investments, the allowance for uncollectible receivables, the OPEB and pension liabilities are also significant estimates. Compensated absences is a significant estimate. And the claims incurred but not reported is a significant estimate. All of those estimates are reviewed by management with the assistance of, say, third parties sometimes, in the case of the OPEB pension and IBNR. And then we audit those estimates. And we wanted to let you know that there were no significant changes in any of the methodology, and the estimates seemed reasonable. I did want to talk to you about the audit delay. There was one tower lease under GASB 87 that we could not find the original lease. We did have to go to the legal department for it, and we did the final accounting, I believe, in late April. There was the adoption of GASB 96, and then the final delay was obtaining the legal letter, which we received on May 10th. And your financial audit is dated May 10th. We have not referenced other auditors in this audit, and management did not consult with other auditors. There were material audit adjustments. The financial statements to government-wide, or what's called the GASB 34 conversion, was a significant, had significant audit adjustments. The adjustments to the investments, or the fair market value adjustment, was significant. The cash and payroll adjustments were significant. The trustee activity for all of the debt were also some activity we accounted for. OPEB and pension adjustments were made, as well as the self-insurance activity. We could go to slide 4, please. With regard to accounting policies, the only change was the adoption of GASB 96. We had no disagreements with management. And when we say disagreements, if we disagreed on anything, it would be over, usually over accounting policies and application of guidance. For the uncorrected misstatements, there were some misstatements that went uncorrected, and that was management's decision to not correct them. They'll be corrected in a prior year. But there was an adjustment that we recommended for ambulance accounts receivable allowance in the amount of $61,264 in the general fund. Another uncorrected misstatement in the general fund was to reconcile accounts payable to the trial balance by $89,665. And then we did notice a prepaid account that should have been cleared out the prior year for $80,509. Management is aware of these and has decided to correct those balances in FY24. Slide 5, please. Okay, with regard to the single audit report, for the Yellow Book report, which is internal control deficiencies over financial reporting, we did identify 4 material weaknesses, which I'll go over in another slide later on in the presentation. Under uniform guidance, we did issue a clean opinion on the city's compliance with the 2 federal programs that we tested. We did note, however, 2 matters of noncompliance that were also considered significant control deficiencies, which we'll also report on later on in the presentation. For the HERF examination report, The city received a clean opinion on compliance. We select a sample of accounts payable disbursements, payroll and payroll-related disbursements, and transfers to make sure that the money is spent in accordance with the statute, and there were no compliance findings on the HERF examination report. Page 60. On the annual expenditure limitation report, the city of Nogales received a clean opinion. They are in conformance with the Uniform Annual Expenditure Reporting for the state of Arizona. And we noted that all additions, subtractions, deductions, and exemptions were deemed allowable. Slide 7. The annual financial report, or the audit of the basic financial statements, also received a clean opinion. We do issue a disclaimer of opinion on the supplementary information that, it is audited in relation to the basic financial statements, but you do not receive assurance on those supplementary information. Our audit did include a risk-based approach, and there were 4 items that we believe to have some risk, in terms of auditing, and then that allows us to either test more or test less depending on, our approach. And those risks involve management override of controls. That is a risk for every organization, not just the city of Nogales. There's always the risk that management is going to, push their staff to run a journal entry through or do something that is not proper. So that is a risk that auditors consider for every organization. Revenue recognition is a risk of anything that's going into the cashiering function or revenue is also considered a risk, and that is also industry standard. For the city of Nogales, however, the financial close is considered a risk. We just went over the number of adjustments that were required to close the books, and because those are not handled by management, we do consider that a risk for our audit. And lastly, anytime a new standard is implemented, it is considered a higher risk. And so GASB 96, the implementation of the subscription-based information technology agreements, that was considered a risk for our audit. Next slide, please. Okay, so let's go over some of the highlights of the results of the actual numbers themselves. The assets and deferred outflows of resources of the city exceeded the liabilities and deferred inflows of the city by $91.8 million. So $91.8 million is the net position, or what's considered to be equity, of the city of Nogales. At the end of the close of the current fiscal year, the city's governmental funds reported combined ending fund balances of $42.9 million, a slight decrease in comparison to the prior year. At the end of the current fiscal year, unassigned fund balance for the general fund was $38.7 million, and that represents 135% of the general fund expenditures. So typically, you want to see how much you have in unassigned fund balance. Make sure it's usually above 100%. That is a good indicator. General fund revenues were $5.4 million more than budget for the fiscal year. Also a positive trend. Expenditures were less than $13.5 million. I'm sorry. Expenditures were $13.5 million less than budget. And then the general fund revenues exceeded expenditures by $1.6 million. So if slide 9, if we dig into basically what happened on the income statement for the general fund, there was an increase in sales taxes of $1.9 million. There was an increase in state shared revenues of $1.4 million. There was less money earned for grants of $2.9 million. Investment income had a good increase of 1.9 million. Increase in expenditures of 2.4 million. So all of those factors were the major factors that contributed to the city having net income of 1.6 million in the general fund last year. The sewer fund experienced a slight operating loss of $600,000, which is comparable to last year. The operating loss in the water fund was almost $700,000, and that actually is, last year the water fund had a slight operating income. This year it's a slight operating loss. And then the sanitation fund had operating income of close to $400,000. Slide 10, please. We go into the single audit. We do issue 2 reports. One has to do with internal control over compliance and federal expenditures, and the other has to do with compliance with each major federal program. We do provide an opinion on the compliance with the programs that we tested, and we do not provide an opinion on internal controls, but we do report on the internal controls. And then we do provide an in relation to opinion on the schedule of federal expenditures, which is considered the CFA. Slide 11. So this year we tested 2 major programs. The Homeland Security Grant Program, which was $726,000. And then we also audited the Coronavirus State and Local Fiscal Recovery Funds, or the ARPA funds, of $907,000. The total federal awards expended by the city of Nogales was $2,308,519, and we tested 71% of that. And the results, you did receive a clean opinion on the compliance with both of those programs. There were, however, some findings. We'll cover the financial reporting findings first. There were 4 material weaknesses. A material weakness is an internal control deficiency that is so severe that basically an error would not be caught by your current financial management. The first has to do with the preparation of financial statements. This is a repeat finding from 2022. We do recommend that eventually your staff prepare the financial statements or the annual financial report in-house. The second has to do, this was repeat from 2022 and 2021. The audit adjustments are material, and we are recommending that management take more time to make sure that these adjustments are handled internally before the audit. The third one is the timeliness of the issuance of the audit report. This is a repeat finding from 2022. This has to do with the bonding agencies and your debt are required to have your report issued by February 28th of 2024. That did not occur last year or this year. I believe a draft was sent, which suffices to get you by, but technically it's out of compliance. We did issue 1 additional finding for no written policies and procedures for newly implemented GASB 86 and GASB 87 and 96. And then our last internal control deficiency has to do with no formal information technology policies and procedures. That definitely has to get addressed and in writing. Okay, the second report that we issue under the single audit has to do with compliance with the uniform guidance. And we had 2 findings. They were not material weaknesses, they're significant deficiencies in internal controls over compliance, and there were instances of non-compliance. The first has to do with procurement suspension and debarment for the ARPA funding. We selected and tested 5 competitively procured vendor contracts, and there was no evidence of procurement documentation provided for review. 5 out of 5 vendors tested for procurement did not provide support for the procurement method used. price bid comparison and the cost analysis performed was not provided. 2 out of 5 vendors tested over with purchases over 100,000 did not provide support for the control in place for the review and approval by the city manager. And then 5 out of 5 vendors tested did not have support from the SAMS verification check, verifying that the vendor was not suspended or debarred. Next, slide 14. The second and last finding had to do with reporting over ARPA. And this one, the city of Nogales used money for ongoing public safety expenditures. They provided expenditure support contained in COVID-19 emergency response purchases, public health purchases, water and infrastructure. So the report explained how the revenue replacement funds were allocated to government services, but there were no expenditures of the PRS expenditures. So basically, what occurred was when you applied for the funds, you said you were going to use them for PRS, but they were used for a different project. The project was allowable, so that's not the issue. There was not an allowability finding. The issue is the reporting of how it was spent was not accurate. And that concludes our presentation. Is there anything that you all want me to go over in more detail?
Go ahead, Mr. Doyle.
One of the things that you didn't cover in this, going over this, I guess the highlights of the audit, that's on one of the books that you gave us is a concern that I found with our communications or IT office, that apparently they're not following certain procedures that put information at risk. And I wanted to get a little more clarification on that.
Of course. With all of the increased cybersecurity threats and the complexity of what's happening with our IT environment, we did not have any IT findings. However, we are recommending that your IT department sit down and develop a formal policy and procedure that then gets presented and worked through with management and the city manager, and ultimately gets approved by council, just so that everything that they're doing is documented and approved by you. So that's the finding. I mean, the good news is you didn't have any problems. The bad news is you still need to put something in writing.
The other concern overall was you made many recommendations in many areas where we need to improve on. And it seems like not having clear reports or, and my concern is that, we can't identify how the money was spent and it's placed in a different heading, I guess, or did you get a satisfactory answer from our staff that all these things are going to be corrected in the future? Because we need a check and balance, and if there's so many inconsistencies, it's kind of hard to have a check and balance at the end of the budget year.
So management did provide a corrective action plan. And Jean, I don't know if you want to go over that corrective action plan. I can't bring it up on the screen because I don't have sharing ability, but for every finding, there is a timeline by which these things are to be corrected. And that was part of the financial audit.
Thank you.
Mr. Bermudez, Mayor?
Done, Mr. Doyle?
Oh, are you done, Mr. Doyle?
Yes, I guess that's, basically what I was saying. What was the question, Councilwoman? Nadia?
No, I interrupted. Sorry. Are you done?
Oh, I'm done. Yes,
Yeah.
thank you.
Councilwoman Montiel?
On the correction action plan, it says see corrective action plan repeatedly. Mrs. Martinez, we need to see that now. And the reason is because it's important for us to see what corrective action you provided. It's part of this audit. And, it's always, I'll provide that to you later. I'll provide that to you later. This meeting was planned already. So if we could get a copy of the corrective action plan, I'm sure, is it a lot of pages? Can it be done in the next few minutes? Mr. Bermudez, can it be provided to us if it's in the finance department? I'm sure you've seen it.
Could you get copies for all council?
Thank you.
I can email it to you. I have it. I just can't share it with you on my screen because of our limitations, if that helps, Gene. Would you like me to email it to you? And Mr. Miguel?
Que lo manda Miguel.
Go ahead.
Mayor, if I may.
Hold on. Ms. Lupita, you gonna email it to Mr. Miguel? Lupita?
Can you hear us?
Hello?
I'm sorry.
Yes, are you gonna email it to IT, Mr. Miguel?
Want me to send it to IT? Is that what you said?
Yes, please.
Okay, I will do that right now.
Yes, Mr. Bonillas.
Ms. Martinez, can you please clarify on the last part of the presentation, page 14, where it says reported explanation of how revenue replacement funds were allocated to government services, where it says paid the PSPRS current employer portion for fire and police for year 23. Provided expenditure support did not contain PSPRS expenditures. Can you just go into a little bit?
Yes, sir. I'm multitasking. Trying to get you know, limited one.
Absolutely.
Mr. Melendez, can you give me your email address?
It's-
Miguel dot,
It's mmelendez@nogales.az.gov.
dot A. Nogales, AZ.
Is your phone next to it? No. I'll give you a new mic.
dot. Okay, it's M Melendez at nogales.az.gov.
Yes, not mmelendez@nogales.az.gov.
.ag.gov. Okay, it's going right now. Okay, I'm sorry, there was a question. Can someone repeat, can the councilman repeat the question, please?
I had a question about the last point on page 14 with the PSPRS. Can you just go into it a little bit more? I'm a little bit confused or I didn't catch what you said. What was not included or did not contain says PSPRS expenditures. What is that about?
The project description was not correct. So when the monies were applied for, there was an explanation of how they were to be used, and it was for PSPRS. Well, if you recall, you borrowed the funds to fund the PSPRS. So the money was then used for restroom, I think renovation, and some other fire and police equipment. And that did not get reported correctly on the reports. And what should have happened really is the budget change should have been reported back through the Department of Treasury. But you don't have a finding on allowable costs. What you did with the money was allowable per the regulation. It's just the way you're communicating with the Department of Treasury of what you're doing with that money should have been, formally changed through either reporting or through the budgeting methodology.
Well, I would say that's kind of a problem because I thought it was some of the ARPA money was going to be strictly for the PSPRS, but some other project was done. I know it's not illegal, but it was not informed to mayor and council. Thank you.
Vice Mayor.
Yes, good morning, Ms. Martinez. Regarding the finding on timeliness of financial reporting, it says there that the cause was because the Nogales Housing Authority audit financial statements were not provided to the city until mid to late January. The delay in the completion of the audit housing authority financial statements resulted in a delay of the city's financial statement audit. The financial audit for the housing authority was approved in December 14th, and it was approved by the Board of Commissioners and passed on to the city. So why does that make it late? It was way before the deadline of February 28th. So why was that the cause of the delay? The housing authority's audit is due 6 months after the fiscal year, and this was delivered and presented on a timely basis.
You there, Mr. Lupita?
Can you hear us?
Hello?
Yes, sir.
Did you listen to that question?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
On page 10 of your single audit act report, you mentioned that the delay was the Nogales housing audit was not completed in time.
Yes. And so the corrective action plan looks like the city will be hiring a third-party consultant to assist the department in addressing year-end audit adjustments, and that will be done by June 30, 25. So it looks like another year If you scroll down on this corrective action plan, we can go to the corrective action plan for the findings related to not making it in timeliness. So let's go to, it's 2023.03. Keep going. So that's the same corrective action plan, is that the city will hire a third-party consultant who will work with the finance department to address year-end adjustments.
Go ahead.
Yes, Lupita, but my question my concern was the housing authority did turn in that audit on time. The housing authority's fiscal year end is March 31st, and it's a little different from the city. So their time limit to turn in the audit is 6 months after the fiscal year, and it was turned in December, and the Board of Commissioners, were the same as the City Council, approved that audit in December 14th of 2023. So that was turned in on time. So I don't see why that was a cause for this timeliness error.
So I believe one of the things that we've done, at least on our end, is to bring back a partner. Her name is Jean Dietrich. She has worked with the city of Nogales prior to Dennis Osech and myself, and she's more familiar with your account. And it's my understanding your audit has already started, the planning, and that they're going to start the audit earlier. I believe that her familiarity with the account will also assist in ensuring that the audit get done timely. The biggest hurdle, I believe, though, is making sure that third-party consultant is on board. Are they on board yet? Because
No.
the closing, the formal closing and addressing all those material audit adjustments is really what needs to occur.
Not yet, Lupita. I'll be talking with Jean when she returns from Florida regarding this.
Mayor.
Councilwoman Montiel.
Okay, Lupita, this is Lisa Montiel. I'm going to recommend to the city manager in the future that we do these in person. It's very frustrating to the audience and to ourselves. In light of everything that's happening in Santa Cruz County, it would have been a good idea that you be present, and nothing against you, but I think that you should have been given marching orders to be here present. I think this presentation merits your presentation here, so that we don't have to be going back and forth. And on that note, I just want this to be on record. So the timeline of the housing audit, I brought it up a couple of times throughout the last few months to the city manager. It's in writing, and asking him for the audit. I find it very important that we have an audit before we start spending next year's public funds. So like Mr. Bojorquez said, the housing audit was presented and approved by the commissioners on December 14 of 2023. So the city's audit was supposed to be due February the 28th. It's always, of course, 8 months after the fiscal year. The council received the audit on May 7th. If you recall, I personally called you all to see what was a problem, because I wasn't getting any answers. We needed an audit. We needed to look at the audit. I called your office. I'm sure you're aware that I was asking why the audit was not here. I called last Thursday, and we got all this information Friday for us to look as council members. Friday we got it, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and here we are looking at an audit. I'm sure that business like that shouldn't be done that way, looking at an audit in the last few days. So we get the audit on Friday, okay? The auditor's letter report is signed May 10th. Why did it take 4 months for us to receive the audit?
4 months for us to receive an audit. And, you know, here we are, we have the findings that are addressed from page 8 to 16. And we could stay here all day looking at the findings. I'm sure all of my colleagues have a lot of questions. And again, in light of everything that's going on, they should be asked because the buck stops with us. Because what I find is that when we're trying to compensate our employees and we're trying to do the right thing, we need to make sure that the public funds are spent correctly. I find that an audit that sits, for 4 months, so the housing audit it has to be done when it was done on December 14th. What happened during those 4 months at the city that no audit was there? So it seems to be that no one wants to talk about it. It seems like what happened those 4 months, and now I'm just learning, like all of us here, is that there's going to be an external auditor coming in. The public already pays enough, over $100,000 for you all to do an audit. And when I talked to somebody there on Thursday at your office, Mrs. Martinez, I specifically told them to look at last council meeting in May, where both the manager and the finance director said that there were some issues going on with your firm. And that was probably the delay. Well, beknownst to me, I didn't know that you all, your company, already had sent this on May 10th. The letter is signed May 10th of 2024. So you already had sent all this information on May 10th. So when we got together to do the budget sessions, this was sitting on someone's desk already. All this information was sitting on someone's desk. So obviously you guys mailed it to the city, but it sat there on someone's desk. And now you're telling us council members that we need to use public funds to get another auditor or explain that to us, why we have to get someone else to do your job and the city's job. Is there a disconnect? Maybe I don't understand it correctly because I'm not an expert, I'm not an auditor, but it seems that this is the second year that it's late. And we could use all the excuses, the housing. I remember back then when the housing director didn't do the audit. We all got all over him. So the audit from the housing was done. But for 4 months, we don't know what happened. It's sort of like maybe there needs to be some answers as to why it sat there for 4 months. I know that there was a letter that needed to be done by the law department, which you told me on Thursday. I don't think I talked to you, Ms. Martinez, but I think I talked to one of your colleagues. Don't know her name. I forgot her name, but I have it written down. That wasn't really one of the reasons why it got delayed. It's kind of minor, as you all know. It's just a legal letter talking about the real estate and stuff like that needed to be cleared. I just wanted that to come out in public about the delay that I find very interesting. And I wanted it to be on record in light of everything that's going on. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Go ahead, Mr. Bermudez.
just for the record, that has not been sitting on anybody's desk. We just received that last Monday. Friday? That's Friday. And then they followed up with the actual tangible books a couple of days later.
Mayor. Mr. Bermudez, the fact that it sat in someone's desk, it's not to say it sat on your desk, it sat on someone's desk. The problem, we are responsible here. We are responsible to make sure that the audit is done on a timely manner. And it's the second year in a row that this happens. And when I say it's at someone's desk, well, whose responsibility is it? I don't know. But you as city manager should find out why we got it on May 10th. We didn't get on May 10th. We got it last Friday. But what happened during that time?
Go ahead, Mr. Grayes.
Ms. Martinez, I just need some clarification. Going over the audit, the documentation you provided, it states you have audited the accompanying financial statements of the governmental entities, the business type activities of each major fund, and in your opinion, based on the audit report of no other auditor, the financial statements referred above present fairly. It further states management is responsible for the preparation of fair and presentation of financial statements. So basically, you just audited financial statements that were prepared by the city. There's no way to determine whether expenses or anything else was done in accordance to law. I'm not making any suggestions. I just want to make sure I understand this audit. And then you find that there was an excess of expenditures over appropriations, over $100,000, but we did have cash available to pay it. Did we violate any expenditure laws or anything like that? Because that's $100,000 that we might have gone over budget. That's a concern I have. So I want to make sure we're okay with that. And then all these material weaknesses that are significant deficiencies, we do have a corrective action plan, but last year we had a corrective action plan, and these are repeated issues. So when are we going to take control and make sure this stops and we get this boat corrected? I see, yeah, it is a short time for us to review this, but in that short time, that is what I found. So there is a concern, especially with the issues going on with other government entities. This only tells us it's an audit of what we give them, what we want to give them. Where are the checks and balances? That's what I want to know. And I think that's what the community would like to know, is that we are spending our public funds correctly. So that's the biggest concern I have with all this. If we do have to implement this immediately, let's do it. We are looking at hiring another auditor, but we need to get to the bottom of this and make sure that this is done correctly so that when we do our budgets and do want to give out raises, we won't be hit next year. Oh, we overexpended another 100,000 and it's coming from the general fund. Our general fund is really healthy and it's there and we use it, but let's make sure we are reasonable on how we determine what gets done. So can you just clarify that? Is that what we did? It doesn't cover anything else?
Yes, I believe that you do have the material weaknesses that we discussed, and they are repeated, so there is concern. But our audit, I mean, we had to make a lot of adjustments to make sure that the final numbers you received are materially, they're reasonably stated. And so what's in your report are the findings, but everything else has been audited and it's fairly presented and materially correct. So those are the assurances we give you when we sign our report.
Go ahead, Mr. Doyle.
Mrs. Martinez, going back to what Councilman Bonilla's last question, there's at the end that area of the projects that were getting funded, and then the projects were changed for, or the funds were used for other projects. Now, if we get funded for those projects at X amount of dollars and we change to another project that costs less, do you have in your findings where that the excess money went to?
So that project's been going on for 2 years now, and I think we would probably, it'd be prudent to have another meeting on those to get to the bottom of, to answer your question properly so that you can see the cumulative expenditures that were spent, where all the other funds were spent as well. So we'd be more than happy to come down in person and present that, how those funds were spent and show you all of the, the budget material versus the reporting versus how the money was spent. But I think that would take a long time, and we do have the records though, and we did audit them.
Mrs. Martinez, the reason that I'm concerned about these things because of all the inconsistencies, like Councilman Gradillas mentioned, and also Councilwoman Montiel, of the situation we're in this community, what's already in play in people's minds, and we represent the people of our community, the taxpayers, and everybody who lives in the city of Nogales. And so we need to have more clarity on when you do your audits. I would appreciate somehow if things weren't so generalized, maybe a little more clear breakdown of some of these subjects, and to inform us more. As it is, we got this audit report within a few days where here we are, and didn't give us a lot of time to really question everything, and I'm glad you're at least present through Zoom, but again, yes, I think we need to have a little more either communication or information and clarity in the next audit report, so that we can make better decisions on our budget and whatever else these findings apply to. And that's basically what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Bonillas.
Mr. Bermudez or Gene, I'm very concerned about this PSPRS, how money was allocated for other projects. I know that we didn't violate technically any laws, but as far as I remember, when we voted to use ARPA funds, it was to pay the current PSPRS issue that we had. And it turns out now that, well, not all of it was used for that. And it was done in a manner that, again, we just found out right now that it wasn't completely used as what we agreed to. So I want to know who made that decision and as to why, because we had agreed, we voted here on the dais to use that ARPA money precisely for that. And I don't like playing with fire. When it comes to PSPRS, as far as our police officers and our firefighters, that is something that I've been fighting for the past 4 years. And just to decide one day, well, you know what, we're not going to use all this money. We're not going to use the ARPA fund. Who cares what the mayor and council decided? We're going to divert the money to different projects. And I'm not accusing anyone of violating the law, but we had an agreement. We voted to use this ARPA funds precisely for that. And now it's done. It was done in a manner that until this morning, until right now, we're informed that, oh, well, not all of it was used for that. It was we diverted the money somewhere else. Unless I was the only one that did not know about this, because I'm finding about this right now, and I'm very concerned that we make decisions on the dais, yet behind the scenes, it's done differently. And I think so. My question is why vote on it? Why sit here behind the dais when these other decisions are made and we're not consulted? I am very concerned. A few years ago, I fought for floating bonds for the PSPRS. Here, I'm thinking that we paid the current PSPRS balance, but I would like a list either from Lupita or Gene or you, Mr. Bermudez, on how this money was diverted to other projects, please.
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Bermudez.
And this is the first time I hear about that, Councilman. My understanding was that those funds were used for that. And like Lupita says, she can come down and break it down as far as to how it happened and how much was it. Lupita, can you answer what year that happened when those funds were diverted to other, even though they were allowable, but council had agreed to pay in advance the PSPRS?
Yes, give me a minute to open up the binder, so give me about 5 minutes or so, and I can get that answer for you.
And as I remember, Mr. Bermudez, we used the first, correct me if I'm wrong, but we used the first round of our ARPA money to pay that off. So it was probably last year. Last year, I think it was that we voted on that, wasn't it?
It was in
2 years?
21, 22, something.
Yeah, I think it was a couple of years ago.
Yeah, because are you coming out with more or less the date, Lupita?
Yes, I've got the information. So the 907,000 that you spent this year, 53,000 went to the Anza Park restroom. 539,000 went to the police for portable radios and accessories. About 95,000 went to streets. 49,000 went to water. 20,000 went to sewer. And 150,000 went to the Republic EVS ambulance partial purchase for fire. So most of it was used for equipment or for infrastructure improvements this year. Let me bring up last year. 1 second.
I think there's a miscommunication because that amount does not match what was designated for the PRS, because that was the first amount that was given to the city. Finance helped me out, but back in 21, 22, and this amount was what was left, and we had to allocate it to we allocated it to different departments. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes, sir, and it was approved by council, mayor and council.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know what part of the allocation, or if it came in, obviously it came in a couple of phases. Gene, can you come up and explain
Yeah,
that?
because the PRS was a total different amount. It was like 3 million and some.
Okay. So the question isn't how the money was spent. It's on the reporting to the state. When we did the original reporting, we said it was going to the PSPRS. We did that for a second year. When I went in to put in there what we did for the third year, I did not change the title, my mistake, from PSPRS to infrastructure and everything else that the council did vote on. They voted on the ambulances. They voted on everything downtown. Every penny that we have spent on ARPA has gone through council. Every penny. So the amount that's left is what you guys already approved, spend for downtown infrastructure. So it's not a question of where the money was spent. It was the communication between myself and the State Department on the wording on the report. Correct me if I'm wrong, Lupita, but that is what the finding was, correct?
That's correct.
So it's not money misappropriated, money misspent. Everything went through the council. It was on the report the way the title was compared to how it was spent. Spending it was done correctly. The title of the report was done wrong, my mistake.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Gene. There was only one X amount, because I say X because I don't recall the total amount that was allocated to the PSPRS, right?
For 2 years in a row, we had
Correct.
a certain amount, yes.
Yes.
And then everything left over was what council approved to spend on infrastructure, ambulances, the police radios, et cetera, that was approved by council. So it's not a spending question, it was a reporting finding. I just wanted to clear that up.
Thank you, Ms. Jean.
Okay. Do we have any questions?
Mayor.
Go ahead, Ms. Montiel.
So on that note, so Mrs. Martinez, on that note, so the funds, from what I see, were commingled, or were like the finance director just said it was her fault, but so it was the funds were mixed. They weren't put aside, or they weren't noted, and they weren't specifically noted on the audit. The information that was given to you, or the information that was well, you received, did not specifically say these are ARPA funds. Is that correct?
Let me read to you what was reported,
Okay.
and then, so I just read to you how it was spent. Okay. How it was reported was, it said, for FY '23, this paid the PSPRS current employer portion for fire and police for FY '23. That, what was written and reported, does not match what I just told you that was how the money was spent.
There you go. Okay.
The reporting error.
On our part.
On our, yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay. So is council aware that that was not the allocated amounts from ARPA going to a PSPRS?
Yeah, well, it just caused confusion, Mayor, and
I know.
and so and again, I guess it goes down to how we're executing, how we're doing our self-reporting, and you know, I guess everything has been cleared up, but for the most part, we took maybe 15 minutes on trying to clear this up, and it was just a mislabeling or not being able to change the title of the report. But I guess we'll have to clean that up for future reference. Thank you, Mayor.
Go ahead, Councilman Gradius.
I understand that this is merely a presentation of the audit, but I think as a council, we got to take more time reviewing it and going over with it. We don't have an action on it. It's just a presentation. So
Correct.
I think we need to designate some time where we can get together and have a lot more time going through this, because there are some issues that we need to confirm and correct. Thank you.
Mayor,
Go
one
ahead.
more thing. If I heard correctly, there's going to, the idea is going around that they're going to hire an audit or an auditor or consultant. Mr. Bermudez, we need to know about that, because if we're going to hire a consultant to look over the auditor, I don't know what plans you have, but I'm asking you, could you please come back to the council and give us a presentation on what your idea is about hiring a consultant to look over the auditor that we already paid thousands of dollars to. Thank you.
Councilman, Mr. Mayor,
Go ahead, Lupita.
just for clarification, the third-party consultant is going to assist the finance department to be able to do proper and timely and accurate financial closing and reporting. So they're not going to assist us, they'd be assisting the city and the city's departments to all the adjustments that we talked about, the material adjustments, to make sure those are made prior to the audit starting. I just wanted to point that out for clarification. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead, Vice Mayor.
Lupita, just a concern, because I don't want to dwell on this too long. The PSRS funds were paid, expenditures were done maybe 2 years ago. And why is it it's not a repeat finding this year? Was it okay 2 years ago and now we find out that it's a finding?
So it's a finding this year because they didn't change what you actually spent it for. So the way it should have been reported was for FY '23, we spent it on XYZ whatever, the parks, the radios, that's what should have been reported. But what was reported was how it was reported last year, which was we did it for PSPRS, and that's not correct in the current year. So it was the current year reporting that was incorrect.
Thank you.
Mayor, I have one more question.
Go ahead, Ms. Montiel.
Yeah, like I said, I take this very serious. So I'm glad you said that, Ms. Martinez, that they're going to hire, or they're not going to hire yet. If it's over $100,000, we need to approve it anyways. I think that's the threshold. But nonetheless, it's important that we clarify difference between getting a consultant to come and tell finance how to, like you said, close up, do the little things that need to be done so we won't be late again. So tell me what the difference between, I've been asking for like 3 years, I've been here for a forensic audit. I know the county's working on it right now. So a forensic audit is a little different from an audit. I understand that. So is it very similar to a forensic audit that is something that I have been asking to do in the water department? Can you kind of tell me a little bit, in your opinion, what would be the difference between hiring a consultant and in fact hiring a forensic, doing a forensic audit?
Okay. A consultant would come in and be an addition sort of to your finance department. They would assist in maybe helping you get the audit schedules ready, the audit prep, to basically plug any holes that are needed. Let's say you had staffing shortages or whatever the issue is. Those people come in and they supplement your accounting department so that the city's ready for an audit, a financial audit. A forensic audit is you hire what's called fraud examiners, which I am not. I'm a financial auditor, but fraud examiners come in and they investigate either an allegation of fraud or some impropriety that the city's been made aware of. To my knowledge, there has been no allegations of fraud and no actual fraud that has occurred that would require a forensic auditor to be present to perform a forensic audit for the city. That is not the case. Normally, forensic auditors are hired when there is an allegation that either comes to the attention of the city manager or the council, and then they're hired to investigate a specific issue. I'm not aware of any issues affecting the city in this regard.
Mm-hmm. And so that's important to know, because what you audit is what's given to you, information that's given to you, right? That's what you audit. You audit the information that's given to you. Exactly.
5 reports that we spoke of. We do have a responsibility to plan and perform the audit, to identify material fraud, and there was none that was identified. We plan our audit around fraud risk, and when I started the presentation, I told you what areas we considered risky.
Yeah.
One of them is the financial closure reporting, which has been reported to you for 2 years now. So at this point, those are why the letter is written to governance, because it's in your hands to get it corrected.
Exactly. Just one last question, now I'll move on. This company has been working with the city of Nogales for how many years?
I believe since 2019,
So,
2017.
yeah, it's been a couple of years.
And last year we had one of the partners exit, so
Dennis.
at a bad time, he left right before the audit issue, so I had to come in and finish it. And then this year, I was the partner, but we very much would like to continue our relationship with you. Like I said, we are bringing a partner back on that is more familiar with your account. And I do agree with you that I should have been there in person. I wasn't invited to be there in person, but
Okay.
you know, because sometimes with this hybrid situation, a lot of you know, people prefer to do hybrid and not, you know, it's just kind of one of those things where you almost have to invite someone to come down. So I apologize for that. I should have been there in person.
Yeah. Well, you weren't asked.
We can do another presentation if you would like.
Yeah. Okay.
So that, if there's anything else that remains unclear, we can discuss that face to face. But yeah, that's basically.
Okay. So in your opinion, you did your job. It was more of a internal, obviously they want to hire a consultant to come in and do what needs to be done for the audit to be on time. But in your opinion, your firm has done their job.
In my opinion, can you repeat that question, please?
In your opinion, your firm has done your job.
In my opinion, well, let's go back. Let's revisit this a little bit more. For all intents and purposes, the audit of the financial numbers ended on or about late March.
Mm-hmm.
Still late, and that's because of all the material adjustments, whatever. I think both sides were very committed to getting it done.
Mm-hmm.
What lingered was one of the tower leases. Gene, can you correct me and specifically talk about which tower lease that was? There was a tower lease under GASB 87 that the addendums could not be found. I know management spent some time trying to call the vendor so that accounting could get done properly. Gene, can you tell them what lease that was?
So with one of our tower leases that I believe started back in early 2000, maybe even late 1990s, it has switched names 3 or 4 times. So for us to go back and try to find that original contract was the issue. We reached out to the company, they sent us to somebody else, they sent us to somebody else. We reached out to legal tried to find everything that they could. So in the end, we were able to produce quite a bit of information. I can stand here right now and say I'm not sure it's the exact piece of information that originally was asked for, but we were able to gather enough information to satisfy the GASB request.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. That's all I have.
That took us into April. And then by the time that got done, there was a vacated position in the legal department, which we can't release the audit without the legal letter. Maybe in hindsight, what should have happened was a draft of the report should have come to you once the audit was done.
Yeah.
We were just waiting for kind of an administrative, piece to release the audit. That's what should have occurred. And, we did not think about that at the time. And so, we take responsibility for that. But in hindsight, maybe requesting a draft or allowing a draft to at least come to an audit committee so that you're assured that the audit is, for all intents and purposes, done, but can't be released because of a legal letter or whatever. Maybe that needs to be, that needs to happen in the future.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Grayes?
I don't think part of my question was answered. I just realized the over expenditures, are they in any violation of any policy, rule, law, or anything? That's my main concern. You did note it that we took the money from cash to pay it, but was there any violation of anything, policies or rules regarding that?
Not under the AELR. I'm not sure if there's a budget policy where a budget modification should have been done prior to the overrun. Gene, I don't know if you could address that.
At this point with that question, I would like to go back and get with my team and get the books in front of me and then present you guys with the answer. I don't want to stand here and give a not correct answer, if, is that okay? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions on the audit? So, thank you, Lupita. You know, I think we'll just follow through and continue to look into it. And hopefully we do get our audit on time this year with the experience of the issues that we've had, and get the ball rolling on the right path. Thank you.
Thank you for your time. Have a nice day.
You too. With that said, we move to number 5, orders. Number 1, consideration and possible action of orders 2024-06-023, an order of the Council of the City of Nogales, Arizona, adopting the tentative budget for fiscal year 2024-2025, scheduling a public hearing on the budget, authorizing publication of the budget and notice of hearing for 2 consecutive weeks as required by law, accepting a proposal, from the Arizona Municipal Risk Retention Pool for workers' compensation insurance and risk insurance, property and liability, and a proposal from the City of Nogales Employee Benefits Trust for health insurance premiums, financial, and city attorney.
Mr. Mayor,
Go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, I move to table this item.
Second.
Discussion?
Yes, the reason I want to table this item is because every time that I go through the budget, I find different things, different things that don't I agree with. One was the main one was the salaries. I think the 5% across the board salary rate is not fair to the employees on the bottom. I think the fair way to do this is to give everybody the same raise as the top employees and the bottom employees. I found some miscalculations on some of the schedules. Some were getting most of them were getting the 5% increase, but there were some that were getting a little bit more, like 6%, and some that were getting a little bit less, like 4.9, 4.8. And I think we should take time to go over this again and make sure that we're all on the same page.
Mr. Reyes?
I would also like to speak in favor of tabling it because same issue. We are laying off employees because for whatever reason, but yeah, we're asking to provide raises. And I think we need to really look into this and make sure we do our due diligence. Because if we're laying off our employees and we're trying to reward everybody else, there's a visual concern, at least in my part, and a fiscal concern. We got to make sure that we're doing right by everybody and not just selected few. So I have those issues too. And I think we need to sit down. And I thought this was going to be an additional budget workshop, which is what we need before we vote on a tentative budget. Thank you.
Ms. Doyle or Ms. Menendez? Go ahead.
I went through the payroll schedule, and it was a 5% equally to everyone. I don't know, you're saying it was difference between one employees and the other?
Yes. Oh, yes, because I've been looking at some, let me give you an example, just a real quick example. And I'm not going to mention. This was a big one. On the fire, if you look at line number 14, we have a fire inspector going from 40,049, and the proposed increase is 62,679. That's $22,630 increase.
numbers?
Ms. Jean, do you want to explain that?
On the fire department schedule, number 14.
Let me explain that one to you. So that he actually moved from one position into another position throughout the year last year. So he was not making 40,000 as of like right now. He's actually making closer to about 59 because he switched positions throughout the year. So if you ever see one where there's a huge increase like that, it's probably because we promoted them to another position after we did the budget last year. So the number that you see, the 40,000 was what was budgeted into that position. When he moved into the position, he made quite a bit more. So he's actually getting the 5%, just like everybody else. The 6% would be the people who are still getting that 1% based on the old comp study because they've completed another year and they've been under the 10 years. So they still get that 1% because that was what was passed by the council 3, 4, 5 years ago. So they would get 6%. Their 1 year that was already approved by council, and then the additional 5%, it's what we're asking the council to approve now. If it happens to be 4.9%, it's probably a rounding that's on the spreadsheet. When it goes into the system, it's 5%.
I got the same answers, Hector, because I had 4 questions about the same thing. Maybe it was the same concern. And I got the same answer. Why? But at the end, it was 5%. It is 5% at all. So it ended up with $770,000 we're increasing on the general.
That's correct.
Go ahead.
770,000. So my recommendation was that during the budget meetings that why don't we get those $770,000 and divide it by the number of employees so everybody gets the same amount increase. And I know there's not going to be any what do you say, like one employee earning 59,000 and the other one 60,000. There's not going to be a squeeze between them because everybody's going to be getting the same. You know, that's my suggestion. I don't know. Maybe the council has other ideas.
Go ahead, Gradius.
When we met at the budget meeting, we asked for several scenarios to include 2,000 across the board, 4,000 and 5,000. Also, I floated an idea of 6% for anybody making 60,000 and below, and 2% for anybody making above. And if we use that formula, it saves us close to $90,000 or almost $100,000, and everybody gets a fair raise. I don't want to minimize any of our employees, whether you're upper management or director or below, but we keep working on an ancient job pay scale that all we're doing is moving it up. When we get our new study done, it's going to be hard to implement because you're going to see that we are way below where we should be as a city as a whole, but we just keep moving the bar up. I think we need to set aside this, do something, and discuss it before we make a decision a little more, because I don't think we've discussed any of these options other than individually we were provided numbers. But we really have to take a look at this and make sure we're doing what is most responsible for us to do for our employees and also the city, because saving money, if that's what we're doing, since we're eliminating positions, that's one way to go about it. There are other things we can do. If we don't do away with that position, we can find other ways to use it too. But we got to be very careful that we just don't approve a budget just because our numbers are matching right now. We have to take due diligence to make sure that we're doing our job. We are approving a new salary study. As soon as it gets here, if it's 2-3 months, we can revisit and make an adjustment to salaries as needed. It could be as soon as January, or it could be as another year. But I think within this budget year, we need to make the best decision available. Thank you.
Councilor Bonilla.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm actually, I'm okay with the 5% increase. It's a fair increase. It's a sustainable number. We spend most of the morning concerned how we make decisions, and to go back now and some employees should get 6, some others 7. And in our quest to be fair, we're going to end up being unfair to some employees. I believe that for now, the 5% across the table is fair to everyone. I understand that there are employees that will get a lot more than the person on the bottom, but we cannot make the 5%. I trust Gene, I trust Mr. Bermudez, as far as them saying that this 5% is sustainable. It is sustainable. If we are to make a decision, or like Mr. Gradias or other council members here want to, then I think that we should wait for that new comp study and then revisit the issue. But for now, the 5% is fair to everyone. No one is being excluded, but everyone is being included. So I understand that it may seem that a lot of people make more, but of course they make more. They're going to make more because they earn more. They have different responsibilities. But for now, the 5% we should approve this budget today and not table it. That's my take.
Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead, Mr. Bermudez.
If we, again, my budget that I presented to you is sustainable. The 5% will cost $770,000 for everybody, every single employee to get a 5%. My recommendation is to approve the budget as I presented it. And then once we get the compensation study, then we can look at any changes, adjustments that we need to make based on tangible information. If we start dissecting that current comp study and manipulating it, it's not going to be any good for anybody because it's just making matters worse. Discrepancies are going to be more instead of being better. So, like I said, my recommendation is to approve this budget as I presented it to you with a 5% increase, and then we'll look in the near future as soon as we get it, as soon as we get the comp study back to make any type of adjustments.
Mayor?
Hold on, Mr. Doyle.
Well, I see that, again, like Councilman Gradias mentioned, there's also other issues where we want to be seen doing our due diligence, and this is the budget that we're talking for the coming year. And I don't want to rush through anything. I want to make sure that we have the ample time. I think you had mentioned, Mayor, that we were going to go and approve the tentative budget in June 28th. And I think that's a good date. Gives us enough time to go over all these issues as a whole and make the proper decision. Thank you.
Councilwoman.
Just for correction, we're not trying to manipulate anything. We're not, at least I'm not, we're not trying to change something for us personally to gain anything. We're not trying to undermine or circumvent anything. This comp study has been done a couple of years ago, and my whole point of reference is that they're using a comp study to justify salaries that I think, in my opinion, are unfair to the bottom quartile, period. To the guy that picks up my trash, the guy that cleans the parks, the guy that fixes the streets is getting a very minimal increase because your salary is in the 20s and 30s and 40s. If I earn $150,000, I will get a $7,500 increase. Someone that earns $40,000 will probably get a $900 to $1,200, $1,300 increase. That is my point as a council member. This comp study benefits the top quartile, the ones that are earning more. That's simple math. And also it benefits the retirement. It benefits everything. So me as a voted council member, I just feel that we didn't discuss. The buck stops with us. Recommendations are made to the council. The council needs to look at public funds and how they're spent, because at the end of the day, like I said, the buck stops with us. Because some of us won't be here, but the blame will be placed on us. And we see that happening now at other government entities. So for me, it's equal. 5% is equal, of course, but it's not equitable. There's a huge difference. It's a huge difference between equal and equity. What's equal to me is not equity for someone that's earning $40,000. People are earning when they haven't even been in the job for a year yet. I don't think that's equitable. 5% is equal, but it's not equitable. Those are two different words. Of course, if I earn $100,000, I want a 5%. It's going to help my retirement, and it's going to help me long term. But how about that policeman and fireman that earns 40, 50, 60? They're cut, or that secretary that earns 30, 40. We're never going to narrow the gap because this compensation study was wrong in the first place. And they keep using it and using it. And the only people that benefit are those that are earning 80, 90, 100, 110, 20, 30,000 dollars. Maybe I'm not saying the popular thing to those people that are earning those big bucks, and that's okay. It's okay for me. But I'm not here to be liked. I'm here to do the right thing for the people out there. So I'm not manipulating numbers. We're not undermining or circumventing. I'm trying to do the right thing. And that's why you elected me, and I'm going to try to do the right thing. So the reason I am in agreement with Mr. Bojorquez to table it, because we didn't finish the budget talks. Just so you'll know, we didn't finish them. We went through the first day. The second day, we finished at 9 o'clock because we didn't have an audit. We didn't have an audit. Where's the audit? We just discussed 2 hours about the audit being late. So now we're supposed to rubber stamp something. We're not manipulating it, or we're not trying to undermine someone that spent hours doing the budget. That's their job, to spend hours. That's what city managers do, to spend hours formulating a budget. So there's also other questions we have. If we adopt it today, vehicles, there's a vehicle in question, $45,000 vehicle for the deputy city manager. Why? If we adopt it today, why? Why? Do you have a $45,000 car to go out and clean the streets? No. Some of you, I see your cars. That is what I'm trying to say to you today. So that way the rumor mill stops, because you go out there and they say, oh, the council didn't approve it. They don't want raises for the employees. I want a lot of raises for you all. You deserve it. But I want it to be equitable. Thank you.
Councilman Gradius.
One last thing, also on the salaries, you say we're going to wait for a comp study because it's not prudent to make changes. But during the last 2 years, let me remind you, we made a change at least to the minimum, first to bring our employees up to $14 an hour. Next year, we made another change to bring the minimum up to 15. So we are working towards that goal where we want to make sure that we're being fair to our employees. So once again, I'm not minimizing anybody. The guys that are supervisor managers, you've earned your positions, you've probably got your degrees, and you've been here for a longevity. So that does merit you where you're at. But we need to take care of everyone. Every employee counts as a whole. And that's my whole intent with this. I won't be here next year. So I want to make sure that what I do is fair, because how I act, what I vote on, was going to follow me everywhere. So let's make sure we do this right. Thank you.
Councilman Bonillas.
Mayor and council, just for the record, I also believe that our employees, our street department, water, sewer, and all these other departments, all our employees, they are the lifeblood of the city. Without them, the city dies. We need a lot. If it was up to me, I pay them more. But that's not the issue right now. The word equity and equal are just, they're put out there. But for this budget, we need to get something going for them also. If we don't get the 5% across right now, then what? How much more do they have to? Yes, people who are on top, obviously they get paid more. They're gonna get more into their pension. But we will eventually reward the employees at the bottom. We've discussed different ways of how to implement different raises at different stages. But for now, it is in our best interest to get this budget approved and at the 5%, because once mayor and councilors start going down that path of looking at everything and, well, I think this one should get paid 6 and this one should get 5 and this one nothing. And I think we're going down a rabbit hole, and I think that the whole equity thing is going to just fall to the wayside. For now, yes, I understand that the employees at the bottom are going to get less, but eventually we are going to have another budget. We're going to have another comp study that we're going to make these adjustments for everyone. Am I correct, Mr. Bermudez?
Yes, you are correct.
Councilman Doe?
I hate to be rushed into anything, especially on an issue like this so important. I still think we need the time to go over all these things. There's a lot of monies that were mentioned previously that are on the budget, tentative budget. And if they're not spent for those projects, we still have to make sure where that money's going to go and not just move it around the way our city manager mentioned last time. I think we need to be more diligent and show our concerns and show the public that we're taking our time on the money that's being spent, which is their money. It's a taxpayer's money. It's not our money. It's not really, but yet, yes, our employees need a raise. We just need to go over it and make sure we make the right decision on what kind of a raise they're going to get. So that's the way I feel. I don't think there's a rush right now to do it. I think that if we come back on the 28th, we'll be able to make a better decision. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody have any other comments? Let me give me my comment. I think Mr. Bermudez, Jane, and everybody have worked very hard on getting this budget done. I think, yes, all employees deserve a raise. All employees are the face of the city. I go out and I say hi to all of them. I say, the 5% is not going to stop from future raises after we get the comp study. The comp study, which council has neglected to give our city manager the green light to go ahead, do it. Which I think we should have done it, a meeting or two behind, because that's time, and time is money. I think we should have given Mr. Bermudez the authority to do the comp study 2-3 meetings ago, and maybe we would have been very close to having it back. But I think, having this budget presented by Mr. Bermudez, we cannot look at who's up and who's down. We got to look at everybody together. And let me tell you guys, whoever you are, whether you're just started or if you're in top, like Mr. Bermudez, John, Letty, all the directors, I respect you, and I want the best for you. How can we get there? Is our job. How can we get better salaries for you? That's the toughest thing. I cannot spend what we don't have in our pockets. But we have to make sure that every family, every worker in our city employment gets what they're worth. You know, this high tier, low tier, for me, it's an even table. If I do not go by a percentage, I'm going to hurt the big tier, the middle part. The middle part is going to hurt. If you look at the numbers of the employees, what we have, 10% up, 15% on the bottom, 10 and 15 is 25. What's going to happen to the 75% in between? We want to hurt those 75%. And they're your coworkers. They're your coworkers. Do we want to hurt that 75%? Yes. Do we want to increase our minimums from being, 31, 30, 32,000 and stuff like that? Yes. But this 5% is not going to make or break or change that difference. I think we have to do this 5% now, do the comp study, and then we look at how we even it out with everybody. That is what I think, and I'm here for you guys. It ain't gonna be the 5%. Ahí se acabó. It's the 5%. Do the comp study, and then we look at what comes afterwards. And let me tell you, it will come afterwards. It ain't gonna stop. That is my opinion. Go ahead, Councilman Grayas.
Really quick, I agree with everything you're saying, though, and we're not under any time restraints to pass a tentative budget. It's not like we're under the gun, so we just got to be careful what we do. And another thing, a comp study might take 1 to 2 years. Nothing says we're going to get it in 2 months, 3 months. Last one was about 1.5 years it took. And if they're going to use the same one, it's outdated. I think they got to start all new. So we're looking at maybe 1.5 to 2 years for a comp study to come back. So we got to act in the best interest now and not just pull all our money into what the comp study is going to say. And once the comp study comes in, you're going to realize that we are way, way below market standards for every employee, and implementing that at once, you're not going to be able to do it. So I'm just saying we got to move people up, get them closer, at least a little bit, so that when that comp study comes back, you guys can make a more educated decision on this. That's all I'm saying. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, the compensation study is an updated compensation study, which is going to give us the updated market value of every single employee. That's all it is. The reason the last one took so long, Councilman Gradias, was because they did it from the ground up. They did a classification study first. They put out questionnaires, and they wanted to know what every position entailed, what the responsibilities were, and then they went from there. They created that classification, and then they went to the compensation study to get market value for every single employee as far as to what the responsibilities were. I cannot tell you without calling to see how long it's gonna take, because I don't think they even know. But I can assure you, it's not gonna take over a year to get this done. Now, my recommendation, like you said right now, it'll put them closer to where they need to be, and that's the reason why I presented this 5%, because we're gonna be 5% closer to where we wanna be. And that's just the whole thing. And when I said manipulate, because we talked about the 59,000 and 60,000. If somebody from 59,000 that's making $59,800 gets a 6% raise, and somebody is making $60,040 gets a 2% raise, that 59,000 person is going to be making more than the 60,000. So they're going to catapult across. And that's what I mean by manipulating. So if we go with the actual numbers that are presented to us and market value by this company, then we can make a decision, a good informed decision as far as to what we want to do with these salaries.
Go ahead, Mr. Gray.
Correct what you stated about the 59 and the 60,000, but we're classifying them as just a salary. You're looking at two different positions from the information I have. One may be an engineer, the other one may be a supervisor somewhere else. So they're not gonna always be one making more than the other. You're looking at reclass or classifying, all that we gotta look at. Yeah, there's gonna be a crunch. There's always gonna be a crunch. We used to have a crunch in the department back in the day. That's why we had the step increases. That's no longer available. But if we keep just putting Band-Aids on and they keep falling off, nothing's gonna get solved. Let's just take a couple more weeks to look at it, try other solutions, and then come back with an educated response to just approving the tentative budget. I don't think we have to redo the whole budget. That's not in question. And even if we implement different options, we're looking at maybe saving or maybe spending a little more. And I think that's reasonable. Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions, comments? All in favor of tabling this audit? Aye. All opposed? Nay. Hey, take it. Three.
Before I want to do a roll call. Who got that terminate? I missed it. Do that name? Why don't you do a roll call?
Bojorquez, Montiel, Gradillas, and Doyle said aye. Myself, Melendez, and Bonilla said nay. Yes, thank you. Okay, number 2, consideration and possible action of order 2024-06-024, an order of the mayor and city council of the city of Nogales, Arizona, extending temporary appointment of chief of police. Motion? Or you want
Make a motion, Mayor.
a second? Any discussion? Go ahead, Mr. Granillas.
I have a question for legal. Under the personnel manual or under the authority of the charter for the chief to extend the 120 days for acting chief Jimenez, it states that he can do it, but my only concern is the time frame. I think we appointed him January 5th or our first meeting in January, and the 120 days would have been up, according to my calculations, in May. So my concern with legal is whether we are working him out of class and if that affects us in any way, shape, or form.
John, you're on?
Can you hear John?
Is he on mute?
Still active. Mr. Mayor, let me explain to you a little bit about this this extension. Chief Jimenez is gonna finish his degree. His last class is on Friday, actually. And so this is happening before the July 3rd meeting, and his acting ends on the 26th of June. So we would have a gap with that, with him doing that job without being approved by mayor and council over the 120 days. Once we get Friday, he's going to find out, we can come up hopefully next week with the help of HR. It's called a knee degree, Chief. And so hopefully we get that in the next week and we can I'll present him for before council on July 3rd for ratification by council.
My only concern is the time limits. My math adds up to 120 days would be May. you're stating June 26. So can we just confirm that?
Ms. Carmen, could you come up and explain that, please?
Good afternoon. So what happened is when it came before council, it was in January, you're correct. However, the current assignment was to term in February 26th. So he brought it before that extension was due, but then it got extended from that date. So it got extended from February 26th. So when you count the days, it'll end June 26th.
That was my concern. I just didn't want to make, we have a gap in between. And also under the job description for assistant chief, first one is may serve in the absence of the chief of police. So if we're only looking at a couple days, I don't think we got to make an order reappointing him. He's still going to be acting chief. And then we open it up, and as soon as his degree comes in, then we might bring it back for appointment in a couple of weeks, or depending on if you have anybody else, we can act on that.
Mr. Doyle, do you have a question?
Yes, it goes along those lines of why that position hasn't been opened up. I mean, I know that it takes a little time once you open it up. Why are we sitting so long on that? I'm not trying to fill that position.
Mr. Doe, my intention is to appoint Chief Jimenez as a chief of police. If you noticed, ever since I left the department, there has been a seamless transition as far as to service to the community, service to the employee, and service as a whole. So my intention is not to open it up. We've done that before in the past, and we've had very bad luck in hiring chiefs from the outside. When we have internal applicants that have worked hard to get their degrees, if we're talking about employment growth, this is the way to go. We're trying to set a career path for all these employees, and my intention is to approve Chief Jimenez as the next chief of police permanently from the Nogales Police Department.
My concern is that, fine, you know, he can still, but I still believe that it should be opened up, and he's going to apply, and it'll be your call. But the thing is, I'm getting a little concerned about people looking at us giving preferential treatment or favoritism. I don't know if it affects the morale amongst other officers in the department, but I think we need to be more on the up and up as far as at least going through the procedure and the process of what it should be, which is opening up positions where I'm noticing that we're straying away from that. And that's, I don't, you know, we represent our voters, our citizens here in our community. Those are our bosses. They're the ones that put us here, and they put us here for a reason. We need to keep the rest, which would be the city manager, as far as what we feel. So, you know, it's not so much the city manager telling us all the time what's best for the city. We have been voted to make those decisions. So, yes, we need to compromise sometimes and reach, you know, some kind of an agreement. But right now, I don't want to be seen by the general public that we're just, you know, going through the motions and rubber stamping everything that comes through this council. That's my concern. I think we owe our public, you know, what most of us ran on saying that we wanted to be accountable, that we wanted transparency, that we wanted, you know, to follow everything. And so that's my concern. I think we're starting to move away from that, and I don't see any problem with following procedure of opening it up. By that time, Mr. Jimenez will have his degree. He can apply, and it'll be your call. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, that's common practice in every department, USA wide. there's an internal culture, there's a community culture, there's an internal service, there's a knowledge of the community, there's a knowledge of the department that needs to be taken into consideration. Now, if Chief Jimenez was doing less than what I expect him to do, and the community expected him to do, then I would hesitate to do that, Mr. Doyle. However, he went to the extent of getting his degree. And so what are we showing our fellow employees? That go out and get a degree and it doesn't make a difference, we'll just go ahead and open it and bring somebody else from the outside. That's not the message that I want to send. So my intention is to make sure that we create a career path. We create a good working environment where people can say, you know what, if I put in my time, get my education, then I have the ability to be the city police chief, the city fire chief, the city manager. And that's my intention behind that, Mr. Dole. There's nothing else. And talking about transparency, that's the reason we're discussing it here in public right now.
Yes, and talking about transparency, where it says on the background, now therefore be it ordered by the Council of the City of Nogales, Arizona, that pursuant to Chapter 2, Article Section 2-11 of the Nogales City Charter, an extension of the appointment of Carlos Jimenez, temporary chief of police, beyond the original term of 120 days is approved. Where did legal come up with that word beyond? That's like indefinite. We need to either put a amount
Mr. Doyle.
to be more clear.
Mr. Bermudez just said the timelines. It's 5 days that we're looking at.
Maybe I'm being misunderstood. We're not saying no to Mr. Jimenez. We just want to make sure things are done right. And when you open it up, it will be your call. He'll have his degree, and it'll be your call, who you select and appoint as chief of police. All I'm saying is, let's follow procedure. It's not going to affect the time things that much. Like Councilman Gradilla said, and we talked about, why are we rushing through things? I don't understand that, and not going through the process.
Go ahead, Mr. Bonillas.
Maybe this, Carmen can answer this, or you, Mr. Bermudez. When there are openings in the city of Nogales, we sometimes receive emails with a job posting, but it is labeled as internal or external. So it's not always open to the public, because we first give our employees that have been here for a while, we give them the first take on that, if they're qualified to do so. And I think now Mr. Jimenez has put in his time, he's put in his time in school. And so I don't think we're not being transparent. I just think that, and because we are discussing it here at the meeting, we're just, as the mayor said, it's going to be for 5-6 days, and it's not forever. There is, if Mr. Jimenez for some reason is unable to finish his credential, his school, then we'll revisit this. But I believe he will finish. And I think that it is with our responsibility as mayor and council to approve this, because Mr. Jimenez has put in his time, and I believe that we always do this. We do this. We do internal and external postings. So we're not playing the system. We are being transparent. We're just giving our employee that's been here for many years to be a police chief.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Go ahead.
And that wording that's on there, it's on the charter. It wasn't anything that was done by legal. It's on the city charter, actually.
Thank you. Mr. Greyes?
I would like to amend the motion to include extension for 60 days. I think in that time gives us enough time for either to open up or bring it back before council as soon as his credentials are acceptable. And I think that would make it a lot easier on everybody if we put a time limit on it. I think 60 days is half of the 120. So I think we can work with that.
Mr.
I
Mayor?
make a motion to amend the motion to 60 days.
And we're probably looking at about 10 days, if anything.
Second.
Okay. Go ahead, Ms. Montiel.
Yeah, I just want to make it clear. So was it published internally, Mr. Bermudez? Was this position internally published?
No, it was not.
No. So you're making that decision just to promote and hire Mr. Jimenez?
Yes, I am, based on his tenure and his position and
Yeah.
his experience. He was
Yeah.
my chief of police for.
I know that. I do know that. But just to make it clear, I want to make it clear on record that we all know in Nogales that sometimes things are done in a certain way. But because we're kind of held to a different standard and a higher standard, if you will, not different, but higher, we want to make sure that in the future positions that are opened, because there are always going to be open positions, that we remember this day, you know, that we remember that if someone feels that that person should have the job because of the fact that they put in their time in the system, and so forth. There have been practices just recently under your watch where a director was hired externally. So, and so it works both ways. I just want to make sure for the public, those people out there that are in the police department that maybe have BAs, I don't know who has BAs or not, that, you know, the reason where we're trying to follow the policy and so forth is and encourage the opening it up so people internally that have BAs and have had them for a while could apply for them. So, but obviously that's not the case today, you know? So I want to make that clear that in the future, you know, this meeting will be on record that, you know, sometimes recommendations are made, and it is what it is.
Go ahead, Vice Mayor.
You know, I was always under the impression that when you have a director or a manager, and then you have an assistant director or an assistant manager, that would automatically put that person as a second person in place to take the job in case that top person leaves or doesn't retires or whatever. It's done with the President of the United States. You know, they have a vice president. If the vice president is not available, then the responsibility falls to the vice president. And it works with the city manager also. If the deputy city manager is willing to take the job, the responsibility of the city manager in case the city manager leaves, that's up to him if he doesn't want to take it. But I think that would be the next person in line to take that position. So that was my thinking in every department that has an assistant or a deputy. I would think that would be the proper procedure to follow. Otherwise, you know, nobody would be interested in being a deputy. You know, if they have an intention of being a chief of police at one day, it says, you know, but I don't want to be a deputy, then, you know, it takes him out of the running. But that was my impression.
Which is similar to what was done here. Chief,
Mr. Mayor, from the get-go, I was transparent as far as to what my intentions were. And the reason that he was put interim and he was giving that responsibility was because we were waiting on his degree. His degree is two days away. And so now we're discussing this, something that was done 6 months ago. I think what we're trying to do is thank you for clearing that up, Vice Mayor. We're trying to set a career path, okay? And yeah, there are other people that have bachelor's degrees in the department, yes, but they don't have the supervisory experience or management experience as Chief Jimenez does. Eventually they'll get there, but what I want to do is make sure that we show that they're taking into consideration. Because if this is going to happen, they're going to say, well, then we're losing officers. Then if there's no career path here, then they'll find their career path with other departments, and that's not what I want to do. That's not the message that I want to send, Mayor.
thank you. So first, 60 days, you're good with it?
I'm good with that, Mayor.
Okay. So Now we'll go to the amendment. All in favor for the amendment for 60 days, to extend the 60 days temporary appointment of chief of police? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Okay, motion passes. Then guess the first motion, we remove it. Well,
Are you there, John?
we voted on the amendment. So now vote on the first motion
Now you have to vote on the approval with the amendment.
with the approval of the amendment. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Was that all 7 of us? Ayes? Hello? Is that to approve the amendment? You have to vote for both. So, all in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion passes to extent. Any other comments? Move to adjourn? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes.